It's been another great year of gaming on YouTube and off YouTube for geek gamers, and I decided this year for my year-end video to do a mixture of what I'm calling the best and the most. The best thing I encountered of a type, or the most interesting, useful, versatile, unique thing I encountered. I don't really do top 10s or top 5s, as you know, very often, because to me that's almost antithetical to what gaming is all about. There's just so much in this hobby that's different and unique and variable that's why I love the hobby. It's just, it changes, and if you have an interest in mechanics or theme, there's something there for you. And over the years, my interests change, and that's somewhat reflected on the channel and what's presented here, and the offerings change, and that's reflected as well in terms of what I present. So this year it's the best and the most, or the most and the best, I can't remember what I'm calling it, of 2023. And as always, I thank you, viewers, for sticking with the channel, for helping me to spread the word. I do not do any other social media, so the people that view this channel are my ambassadors to help me expand the viewership, because I'm not on other social media trying to do it myself. I'm just focusing on YouTube and on the rest of my life. So I thank everyone for watching and for helping to share my content. And now we're going to get to the best and the most, or the most and the best, of 2023. So the game for me this year that has been by far the most versatile is Citadel of Blood. Now, I did a video discussing it in the context of how it helped me to generate a solo RPG session, and you can see the link to that video somewhere around here. But I want to talk about it as something that has stood out for me at the end of the year when I reflect back on my gaming, because of its versatility and flexibility. So the first part is it did allow me to generate that idea for the solo RPG session, and I'm not going to duplicate my comments about that in this video, because you can watch the other video to see that. But in and of itself, getting back to the game itself, in such a small package with such a brief rule set, you have so many different options, and you have what amounts to a framework to bring in other things. So what I have brought into this actual gameplay is, beyond the Citadel of Blood rules, I am eliminating the treasure, and instead I am using my Arcane Artifacts and Curious Curios book by Madeline Hale for all the treasure, and I give a roll, so it becomes basically like a D10 and a D100 roll to get the treasure. So if somebody is getting treasure, I'll do a roll like that, and then I'm in chapter 5, and in this case it would be 99. And so we have in this book 10 different chapters of sections, so that particular chapter we would go to the relevant I should say that particular roll, and you would get, in this case, the numbering is a little off on this, but that's going to amount to entry 499, and you can see then what I would get. Then I bring that particular item into the story that I am having in my Citadel of Blood game, which in this case still has to do with the chasing this vampire. So here we have this bear trap charm. Now, when it's thrown on the ground, the spell is uttered, the paper becomes sticky, the next creature who steps in it becomes trapped in place. Well, that's pretty straightforward as anything goes in terms of getting some type of a trap. But in this game, the Citadel of Blood rules just allow for bringing in other material, and we could see here, for example, somebody picked up this silver mirror of true sight. It reflects true things. So in this case, this actually easily related back to the Citadel of Blood Hellgate rule, so that when I get to the Hellgate, it's going to help me on that roll. And some other things, for example, well, we use these already. We had this Axe of Fair Punishment, which can cause an enemy to suffer the number of wounds that Acmeal has. And in this case, Acmeal only had the one wound, but they were fighting a Medusa who got stronger with every wound that it got. So I wanted to try to do my best to defeat it quickly, and I decided in the second round of combat to sacrifice that item to just add the one extra point of damage. Things of that nature. It's just the flexibility and the simplicity of the rule set allows for that. Now, in this particular case, you could see my dungeon is forming in a strange way. I had a lot of interactive feature rooms at the beginning, and it's now been a long way walking with not much going on. And per my little story here, the wandering monster role that I'm doing, if it turns up, it will be the vampire with my party member, but it's been a little quiet at the moment. Nevertheless, the game system is just very inventive, obviously for its time, 1980, but flexible even now. And I talked briefly in the other video about how I think the massive box sets of dungeon crawls with tons of minis, 100-page rule sets, and all sorts of attempts to quantify and measure and provide a rule for like everything that could possibly happen is an attempt to just kind of get back to this feeling of exploration. Here you can bring outside material in to do that. I think the next thing I'm going to do is bring in the Dungeon Dozen to create some more interest in the individual rooms. Perhaps I'll make up a rule for when I get to use it. Maybe somebody needs to do a search or something, and that will enliven this dungeon itself. Citadel of Blood has been the very end of the year, something I took back out and am just having a lot of fun with. It's giving me an opportunity to use a lot of these gaming supplements that I have, and then of course it sprouted an entire solo session. So for this year, it gets the nod as the most flexible and baseline inventive game that I have for 2023. And so the game that I played the most this year was Mage Knight. And it's kind of surprising to me because I sort of fell off the game last year. And we're looking here at the setup I've got. These are obviously not the Mage Knight cards. These cards come from Mage Light, and the only reason I'm using them in my game at the moment, I'm not playing Mage Light, although I have played Mage Light, and I've done a video on it. It's an awesome small deck version of Mage Knight, and as I said in my video, and I'll put the link to the video around here so you could see it, it's not really light because it is actually all the rules of Mage Knight. It's just small. But anyway, I'm playing regular Mage Knight, but I'm using the cards for Mage Light because I'm filming this around Thanksgiving. I've got family home and I don't have room to play Mage Knight where I usually play it. So it's interesting to me because, as I said, I fell off the game. I don't know what happened. I was almost even gonna donate it or sell it because I really wasn't playing it for a whole year. And then something happened this year and I took it out and it has been my most played game. I just had a renewed appreciation for it and all the things that it allows you to do in a game. This is basically I'm doing a modified Minds Liberation game here, but I'm not really, you could see I got one mine, but then I had to skip over that one. But it's not competitive, obviously, and I'm just kind of basically playing through it as an adventure game. This version here, I haven't really leveled up that much, but I've gotten some great assets to allies to play with. I got the swordsmen and the heroes, and I just picked up the ice mages, and it's I don't know. It's just that ultimate combination of the card play and the adventuring and the different adventure sites that you can go to, and the different ways of interacting with those adventure sites is really working for me again. I've done at least one video on Mage Knight many years ago, and I talked about the way in which I play it. I think I called it my Mage Knight, where I was for a long time playing with a lot of fan-made material, including event cards that happened at night, potions, a store, and things like that, to really try to transform it even more into an adventure game where the adventuring was not so combat based. I haven't done that in this round of my gameplay of Mage Knight, but it is flexible enough to absorb that type of expansion, informal expansion, and just the combination of how to use spells, how to use your people that you hire, how to use the advanced action cards, the choices to make. It's just, there's nothing, the skills that you choose as you level up. I got this magical item here, which I'm saving up to use because I can turn up to 4 wounds. I can get rid of them based on how many enemies I kill. I don't need to be saying anything about how great Mage Knight is. It's all been said, but with reason. So as a surprise to me in 2023, I've probably played Mage Knight 10 plus times in the past few months. And for me, that is a lot of repeated gameplay. And as I said, I was really close to getting rid of it in some manner. And that's partially why I took it out again. It's like, well, let me just make sure that I want to get rid of this game. And it was a real turnaround. So for me, the most played game this year and my biggest surprise in gaming for me because of that is Mage Knight. By far the most unique gaming supplement that I came across this year was Organic Towns. This is by Headless Hydra Press. You can start, grow, and manage an organic settlement in any ttrpg. And it is I've done a video on it. You can see the video link up here. I'm not going to go through the multiple things that are in this supplement, but it's a combination of random tables to create random places with random events, but it's also like a game in and of itself. You can just kind of play this supplement out because it has its own rules, it has its own mechanics to give you the restrictions on building a town and growing a town over time, and it has rules for managing population and the morale of the town and your defense of the town, and it will have events that can come into play in your town where your town could be attacked. There are prerequisites given for building certain things. You can get, you have construction settlement points, construction points that you need to spend and manage. So it is definitely not just a book of random tables of locations, but it is also that. So you could opt to just go to the book for the random tables if you have a brewery, say, set up, and you want to just roll on the events to get some type of event that you could put into your story, you could do that. However, if you wanted to follow along the rules and grow, build, and manage your town, you could do that too, but then you have to be paying attention to what the prerequisites, so you can't build a brewery unless you have a workshop, and it takes a certain amount of resources to get, like lumber and stone and metal, and you need to make sure you have those resources that you will get from the various things that you do. It's a great, it is, as I said in the video and say again, it does make you feel like you're organically growing a town. The only beef I had with it actually happens to be this page, which I think is not as clear as it could be and is oriented in a way that's unnecessary. Should be oriented this way to, this is telling you what the prerequisites are for doing various things, but there's other ways to find that information out. It's also labeled elsewhere. You could have academies, you can have an apothecary, so it's all labeled here alphabetically, but you are working around the book to decide what you want. And it's really clever. And I love the fact that it can be both a game in and of itself, and it can be something that you could just easily go to and say, I want A, B, and C in my town, and have it there, and then roll on the event. So it lets you interact with it in a variety of different ways. And of course, whatever you create, you could just keep and play later on. It is, I think, very compatible. Well, it's compatible with, in theory, anything, but I think it's system neutral. I think for myself, it feels very much like it is something I could create as a backstory, even for something like a 4 Against Darkness situation, where I had characters that I wanted to bring out of the 4 Against Darkness world and have them be in a town. And then I have so many of those books to pair those books with things that I created in the town. But really, anything that you wanted to do will work with Organic Towns, or as I said, you could just pick it up and play it as a game unto itself. So extremely unique, loved it. Organic Towns, this is definitely the most unique gaming supplement that I came across this year. And by far the most evocative, atmospheric, immersive solo RPG I played this year was Thousand Empty Light. This is a solo supplement to Mothership, and I've done a video on it, and I will put the link to the video up here, so I'm not going to go into the details of how this plays or what this is, but this entire production, from the manual of operations that looks like an old Xerox copy, to the way the Oracle system is presented with the imagery and the explanation of observation, resolution, action, conclusion, and leaving evidence, to the encounters in here. It is just, and the little sort of advertisement here again that looks like this old Xerox, it really immerses you in the world that it is trying to create. And there are some other lovely things that come with it. This booklet here, this cover of the manual of operations, as well as the use it has. This is classification of dangerous and intimidating happenstances. The entire thing is just well produced, thematic, involving. It has a beautiful combination of visual interest with narrative sparks, and I think it makes use of all senses really in establishing gameplay. This was my little copy of my transfer journal that I made when I was playing, and again, you could see my video to learn about my actual experiences with it. But when I reflect back on the year, what I remember in terms of a feeling of something, of being immersed in a world, it is Thousand Empty Light. And now that I am looking at it again, I want to take it out and do another session with it and see how much I feel differently. I know I'm going to feel something. I want to know how much I feel differently about it. It just succeeds in establishing this kind of isolated fear, confined confusion, where things are just out of the realm of understanding, yet you feel like you're having a glimpse of something. And I think it's just so challenging to do in solo RPG play, much more so than playing a ttrpg with somebody leading you, with a referee, with a game master, a dungeon master who is good. That's their job, to get everyone involved in the feeling. And of course, it is a co-created feeling. But one of the hardest things to do in solo is that lift, that emotional lift is, I think, the big challenge. Anyone can come up with random tables if they spend enough time. Anyone can come up with things that will add detail or oracles or structures of if this, then that, and flowcharts and all that kind of stuff. But to produce something that gives you a feeling, that is, I think, the pinnacle of design achievement in so many things, in narrative, basically, in any type of narrative. But here in the context of solo RPG, what we're talking about, and by far for me this year, Thousand Empty Light is the game, that the supplement, the experience that did that. And the best intro to solo RPG that I came across this year is Harpers Quest 2. This is by Joy Peddler Games. This is the entirety of it. It is a slim volume, and I think it is the thing I would recommend most to new players, people new to solo RPG who want to experience the concept of taking a light rule set and applying some RPG principles like oracles and random tables to creating an adventure for themselves. Now, the one downside to it for people new to the hobby is that it does kind of explicitly say to you, you might need to go outside of here if you want to get some more details, some more random tables. It doesn't provide you with an entire world to or pre-existing lore, because it is meant as a framework. So I suppose that's the one caveat, but operating under the idea that many people who do solo RPGing have had some exposure already to traditional RPGs, and as such may have some rule books or access to things, or know how to go on to Drive Through RPG, even to download some free materials. I stand by this as a recommendation for a great entry point for doing solo RPG. I have done a video on this game, so I'm not going to get into huge detail. You can watch the video that I've already done if you want, but what I said there holds true here, which is that it gives you just enough of a framework. It is a light on mechanics and attributes. So we've got strength, dexterity, and wisdom. And it provides you with some magic, some weapons, some suggestions of how to manage your soul character, even with regard to death and dying, as well as the all-important oracles. And it does give you some structure here for fighting and avoiding fighting, and what you could seek to include in a room, NPCs, traps, enemies. Again, very introductory in a good way. What I love about this oracle, it's a D6 oracle, but it allows you to have on one page lots of different answers to lots of different kinds of things. So we have our basic yes, no, but then we have certain types of questions like outcomes, like it's a disaster, it's bad, it's good, it's great. Different ways of saying kind of yes and no. NPC reactions, doors, values, if you need to come up with a monetary value, or what might happen during a rest event or a travel event. And it's so compact, it really boils a lot of things down to the essentials, and I think that makes it extremely approachable. You want to do a search on a room, you can roll on this table and find something. Well, what do you find in the room? Again, back to this table. Enemy reactions, how the enemy attacks. It is just localized and in one place. And it also gives you your own tables for things like traps, some combat maneuvers here and how they work, and then some framework again for creating enemies, what the types of stats would be for the enemy that you're encountering. But again, it's up to you possibly to go outside the system and bring in some enemies to build them up using the stats that would work here. So it lets you get the flavor for what it's like to build a build a mission or a one-shot, a solo RPG one-shot. There are some quest prompts here, a D12 table of quest prompts that are suggestions of things that you could do, and there is actually a little setting here, this forest setting with some rooms. It's essentially like a forest dungeon crawl. And then, of course, there's some great tables at the end with some prompts for rooms, and we have like NPC traits, roles, items, and some prompt tables, some spark tables, D100 verbs, nouns, adjectives, and then what's called unusuals. And I just really love the way this is presented. I was also having here this something more specific to hideout features or prompts. These are D66 tables, castle features, dungeon, mine, cavern, forest. If you wanted that, that was a separate download. And you could see this was my old character sheet from the game I was playing. Very simple. Overall, for me, for all the stuff I've seen this year, Harpers Quest 2 is the thing that I recommend the most to people who have never done a solo RPG and want to play one that is not like based on a choose your own adventure, that is not based on like pulling a deck of cards and reading a prompt, but having a little more agency as the solo GM to create the story, to bring in NPCs, create enemies, and send a character on a mission. Harpers Quest 2, in a really small volume, does a great job of walking you through doing all of that. And by far the traditional RPG that I found the most enjoyable to adapt to solo play this year is Stravagante. This is by Penflower Inc., and it is a series of little pamphlets as well as the pamphlet of prompts, which gives solo players and regular GMs prompts like a verb table, an object table to generate adventures, persons, locations, NPCs, adjectives, all very efficiently done. You even get a map generator here in this little pamphlet. And the whole thing is just, it's really cute, for lack of a better word. The art is to my taste. The mechanics are light. There's magic in the game. There's enough differentiation with classes and races to make it, and treasures here, all very compact. At the time I made my video, I said the only thing that was really missing was a actual bestiary, and indeed now there is one, and you could see an example of the cards here. You've got for spell casting, you have a mechanic I really like, which is to give descriptions and let you, based on your word prompts, come up with the impact of the spell. That's something that I think works very well for the soloist, to integrate a narrative to it. And there are now magic item cards as well in the game. And I just found that this offered enough to be an easy entry point for taking something out. It's super portable. Pairing this with just one or two other supplements that I have gave me enough to create a story. It's portable. I took it with me once when I was traveling and just made a couple characters and put them in a couple situations, and it was really fun. So Stravagante for me this year was the best traditional RPG, very light, very compact, very cute, accessible, that I played. And by far the biggest gaming surprise I had this year was the receiving of and playing of Cardmaster Adventure design deck by Rich Borg. This is keyed for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, and it is got a copyright of 1993 TSR. It was a surprise because it was gifted to me by a viewer and I was not expecting it. And it was something that I had long had my eyes on because it seemed like a curiosity in the D&D world. It is a modular system for making a dungeon and having a dungeon crawl, and it has locations, and it has tons of locations. It has monsters, it has treasure, and it has the capacity to be used with modified stats for its, from its own rules, as well as the actual, you could use it with the actual rules of AD&D. And I think that as a curiosity, and as a gameplay, it was something I wanted for a long time. So I wasn't expecting to be able to get my hands on it, and as a result of that gift, I did. And you can watch my video on it, which I will place a link to that somewhere around here. It is something that I can see myself continuing to tinker with and figure out how to use the materials from the game. I think chiefly the treasure and the monsters are the things. The location deck, it's like got this weird sort of perspective, and a lot of it is just empty locations. Well, here's the bed. I think something similar to this popped up in my video that I did. A lot of them are just kind of empty rooms, but it's definitely something. Well, there's like a pile of wood. I think, as I said in my video, creating characters, playing with characters that actually have the stats from the AD&D, you could do a lot with it. And you could see here I've already got some notes about how to do that. So it's just a great foundational thing. And it was definitely the biggest surprise I had. I think working with the monsters, again, you could see you've got some basic stats, but building this out, you could really bringing in some other type of random dungeon making system, of which there are a zillion of them. You could populate your dungeon with the monsters that you have here and the characters that you have and the treasure that you have, and just get a really great play experience that's built. A lot of stuff is there and built for you. Here's an example of one of the characters. So it's something I'm definitely going to be returning to, and I'm really excited to have it and just figure out a way to make myself an interactive dungeon crawl, spending some time creating dungeons and putting things in the dungeon, and then having my characters that have the capacities of things and different things that they can do from AD&D interact with those spaces. And then when I need to do combat, I have the monsters right here, and when I need to get some treasure, I have the treasure right here. So the random dungeon creation really can be the core of a game, and then going through it can be playing with these materials here. So I'm looking forward to spending more time with this, and it really was just a great surprise toward the end of the year to receive this gift from a viewer, and it definitely is my most surprising game of the year because of that. So as I was making notes for this video, I came across this is my desk, part of my desk anyway, and like many of you probably, I just have random dice out, and the dice change, and this is one of the dice that I have out, and I like the color of it. I don't remember where it came from, and I noticed the strangest thing, which is, here's the dice, here's the die, and look at that, and there's the 4, and there's like this weird, it's got 2 5s. It's like a weird dot there that I don't know how long I've played with this and not noticed that. So anyway, that's just a little bonus there. This is the weirdest dice I've encountered, the weirdest die I've encountered in 2023.